Hey, guys here? Hi. I'm coming at you from the bridge. A little glitchy. How's everybody this morning?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. Glad everybody's here. Everybody healthy? Got plenty of food, all that good stuff?
Yeah, nice background, huh? Are you living a dream?
Yeah, I'm on the bridge here, ready
Cool.
to issue some orders. Hide my background so I don't have to worry about the house, right? Actually, I really like the bridge here. I think it's cool.
Uh-huh.
I have another one that's bad. Let's see. I don't know if it'll let me change it while I'm running, I think. Can you see it? Did it change it? Oh yeah, there we go. See, got my warehouse
Wow.
size.
Are you selling something?
I wish, huh?
You're selling knowledge.
Here's the one I can look all studious. I have the books behind me, so spend time finding Zoom backgrounds. It's fun. That one is really glitchy. I do like Star Trek though. I think that's my favorite one. I like the OTC Atrium. It's good. Fun stuff.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to be able to use Discord pretty soon? Isn't it supposed to have enough people allowed in a group or something that we could switch if we wanted to? I think Zoom is working okay though. It's up to you guys, whatever you think. Okay, how's everybody this morning? I posted our code. Let me share my screen here. Stop that. I posted our code from last time to our General 101 chat. So you don't need to grab that if you already have it. We're going to make some small changes to the application that we finished last time and then create an application to read in a file, because this application wrote out a file as output, and we want to read in a file also so that we have an example of both. Let me get my project open here. And we can read from and write to the same text file, but it's a lot, how do I say, it's more difficult than it should be, because we're going back to that old idea of tape. So much original file handling for text type files and sequential files was based on tape input and output, that we have those old legacy systems that have kind of left this behind, where we think about reading in a file and writing out a file, but we don't usually do the two simultaneously. So if we do need that functionality, which of course we do need, we're going to go to a database. And a database is going to give us that ability, to read data and update the data and do everything that we need. So what we're looking at here when we're looking at sequential files is kind of like the early first steps towards getting to a database, so that we're seeing how things work when we're reading and writing data. And remember that word persistent. This data sticks around. It's not gone when we shut off the machine or restart Visual Studio or whatever. I was looking at some cool stuff with Visual Studio with 2019. Some of you may have done it, but you can do live share. So I've had some issues with my account, with my Microsoft account. They don't like my OTC account. So I think I finally got things worked out to where I can do the live share. So after we're done today, if you want to hang around for a couple of minutes and try it, that'd be awesome. If you need to get out of here, I understand. So I was looking at our application that we did last time, and the last thing that we had done was change our file name. So I'm looking at, let's see where I am. I'm in our Write to Text project, which was our Windows form. And I'm looking at our form load code. Find my mouse here, there it is. My Windows form load code. And in that code, we open our file. So the last thing we did was change our file name. We used the absolute indicator on our string to say that our string should be interpreted absolutely like this without any changes. Ignore those slashes, they're not escape characters, so that our string can be processed correctly. And we found that we got an error, invalid directory, because we don't have a folder named Bob on our C drive. So that's okay, that's what we wanted to find out. We wanted to see how we could get that error. Looking at our PDF document, they do have some information. It's on page 851 about how we could read our file or write to our file directly in the project folder. So they recommend or give us this idea here that we could use the ... notation to back up folders. So what I would be doing here is saying from the current location, go up to the parent folder, because ... means the parent folder. And then from that folder, I'm saying go up to the parent folder again, and that's where the info.txt file should be. So let's try that with our project. I'm going to switch to folder view. Hard decision. Sometimes this folder view can be a little bit troublesome for us. Now I want to make sure, looking at folder view, that I'm in the right project. So I'm going to roll up this Chapter 13 Files and Directories project and make sure I'm focused on our Write to Text project. Our runtime system, we know, is going to look for our saying.txt folder in the debug folder of the bin folder of our project. So we would like for it instead to just look at our project folder. So to make it look at our project folder, we have to say, go up a folder to the bin folder, then go up a folder to the Write to Text folder, and that's where you should find the saying.txt file. So let's change that. Oops, wrong slash. So since I'm working with a path specification, I'm going to use that backslash character, a Windows path, and that should convert from the folder we're actually running in, which is our debug folder, to our project folder. So notice we did not put a backslash at the beginning, because that would be an absolute path reference, and that's not what we're wanting to do here. We're wanting to say, based on our current path, our relative path, go up 2 folders to find our saying.txt. So if I run this right now, I should get an error, right? Let's try it. I should, whenever we're in this file view, it's not situated to run properly. So I can say I'm gonna try it. I want to run the Write to Text project. Let's see if we can run it. Didn't give me any sort of error. How about you? I'm gonna make sure by going to Solution View. Just don't trust it. And I'm gonna run again. So we're not getting an error here because whenever we're specifying our folder, it is a valid directory, right? So we're not getting this directory not found exception. We're getting a file not found. And so far we didn't put any error checking for that. We said if we get a directory not found, do this. If we get some sort of IO error, do this. Can we try to catch that file not found error? What if we put in a final catch for any other sort of error? Let's see if we can catch it. Now I didn't create an exception object right here, so I'm going to have to either use the one supplied by the class, which isn't going to work very well. I'm going to need to put in a really general exception clause. So let's try that. Let's say catch any exception and call that exception object exc, and we can use exc to find our message. Okay, Jonathan. Hope it works. All right, let's see if we get any sort of error here. Nope, it doesn't care. It's like you don't have a file. Ah, let's make it open it. You know what I'm going to do before I do anything else? I'm going to set up a breakpoint so we can step through and see what's going on. I want this breakpoint to be in my form load. So I want it to begin right at the beginning. Now I'm going to try to run. And here we are in our debugger, ready to step through this code. So let's see how this looks. It should be correct. If you notice, it jumped past this catch. So going into that one. Oh, we are getting an IO exception because that file is not found, aren't we? Huh, now it shows up. That's weird. So what I think is going on is whenever Visual Studio is kind of watching us to decide if we've made any changes to the code, if the project needs to be rebuilt. Sometimes if our changes are minimal, it might not realize that the project needs to be recompiled or updated. And we can run into this when we're working with especially these kind of files where we're just changing string values. So that's one thing that can happen. And if I think that's, yeah?
Do you think that for the relative part, do we need a symbol before the path? I mean, because we use with the as symbol before the C driver for the absolute part, but in currently we are using the relative one, so I'm not sure that it works when the for cost because the add symbol or not.
The add symbol is only how C# is going to interpret our string. So just like if we use a $sign before a string, we tell C# that we wanted to do that, those interpolated parameters. When we put an @ before a string, we tell C# to interpret the string exactly as I have it. Don't use any escape characters. So that really doesn't have anything to do with our file path. If we look at our message here, I see that we have made the change. It's actually looking in the right place. It's looking in my write to text folder. And That's correct. I don't have the saying.txt file in my project folder, do I? I have it in my bin debug folder of my project folder. So let's move it now and see if we can. We just couldn't get that error to come up, and we should have been getting an error because that file is not in that folder, right? Does that make sense? Sorry, sometimes it's hard to follow. Okay, so I'm going to close out, and I'm going to put that file in our project folder, which is kind of a better place for it, right? We'd like to have it in our project folder so we can see it right here instead of having to go bury it down into that bin debug folder. Remember I said that bin debug folder items don't get copied to TFS because they're not considered source code. So if we can move this data file into our project folder, then it should get copied to TFS. So let's move it. I'm going to go back to the folder view. And I'm going to grab our saying.txt file, and I'm going to move it from buried down in there into our actual project folder. Now I have 2 of them. We created one, don't worry, when we ran it. Okay, so I want to make sure that this is the one that has stuff in it. I'm going to double click on it. Oh, it doesn't. So we're going to put stuff in it. Let's try it. I'm going to go back to my solution view. I think I'll turn off this breakpoint. Run it. And now let's try to save our saying. Sorry, I was ready. In my mind, we were already reading our saying file, and we are not reading our saying file. We're writing it. So good morning. I need to say early bird catches the worm. The worm. And then we had set our accept button to be our store saying button, so we could just press enter and have our saying get stored. And we can say our sayings are now in our project folder. I didn't need to move it, did I? Because we were outputting it. Now let's go check that file. And I go back to my files and folders view. I should be able to see my saying.txt, and I see our sayings in it. So what we did was, our attempt here was to change the location of where this file gets created. When we did not specify anything except the file name, the file got created in our project runtime folder, which is our bin debug folder of our project folder. By adding in this specification to say that we wanted to go up 2 levels of parent folders, now we're telling the system to create that file directly in the project folder. So now that we've got the file being created directly in the project folder, I'd like to create a new project that reads our file and displays it in our text box information. So it'll be a lot like this one, but I want to go ahead and put it in this same solution, and I don't want to mix it all up with this project. We'll just make it really focused. So again, I'm going to roll this up. I'm going to make sure I'm looking at my solution view. And just to be safe, I'm going to close out some tabs because I'm getting some stuff, junky stuff open here. And I want to make sure I'm working on my new project. Everything kind of cleaned up. All right, so in this solution, I want to create one more project. add a new project. And this one is going to be another Windows Forms app. And we're going to name it Read from Text. So on our form, let's set our title. I read text file or something like that. And we'll read that file that we just created. That's why I wanted to make sure it had some data in it. And I want to change my back color and things. I'll make it something different so I can be sure which form I'm looking at. And let's see, I'll make my fore color much different. And then I want to increase the size of my font a little bit. And I'll make that form a little smaller. So for this application, let's put a label at the top like we did earlier. And we'll make this label say, click to read text file, or click for favorite sayings. Let's do that. And I'll increase the font a lot. Anybody have any storm damage? We were lucky there's some trees down around our neighborhood, but not in our yard. I think I'm going to have the data that we read display in a text box. So we want this text box to be multi-line so that we can see all of our sayings. And I'd like to name it. So let's make it text box saying. And we're not going to read our file in our form load. We could do that, right? Just read it, but that would make things a little bit limited as far as letting our user pick a file or anything. So instead, we're going to have a button. Let's put a button in. And I'm going to make this button be button load. And we'll make its text property say load sayings. I'll fix that back color by. And then it's nice to have that message down at the bottom, isn't it? Especially when we're working with things as unreliable as text files. So I'm going to put a label down here, and we'll make this be label message. And we'll go ahead and see some people like to start with it disabled. We'll just start with the saying welcome, because probably in our code we'll end up controlling that anyways. If we put something there, then the next developer coming along knows it's there. Those labels just disappear if they're not pointed out. Okay, that looks good. I don't think we need anything else for our application. So whenever somebody clicks the load sayings button, we're going to do that. We're going to read our file and input it. Find my example here. I'm kind of looking at different ones, deciding how we want this to work. I'll go ahead and double click on our button. In our last application, or last project, we created our stream writer object as something that was a form level variable. To read a text file, we're going to use the stream reader object, and that way we can read a file as input. Let me set up our using clause. We need system.io. So for this application, we don't really need that object to be class level because we're only going to have the code for our button, but we'll go ahead and set it up for future enhancements, assuming that we could. And it's going to be our stream reader. So our stream reader object, we'll call it FILN, and in our specifications here, we could go ahead and instantiate a new instance of the stream reader and give it the file name, but we'll wait and just declare that stream reader as a class level variable. And then in our button node, we'll use that. Now, whenever we're working with an input file, we're going to have data that we read in. So just like reading in data from a user, it's helpful if we have a string variable set up to read that data. Let's call our string in value. We're going to read that data from our file. Remember, our data, the way we set it up, each of those sayings is an individual row or record in our file. So as we read our file, we want to read each of those rows at a time. So we're going to need to start at the beginning of our file and read rows until we've read all of the rows in our file. So the first thing we want to do is check to make sure that the file is valid. We're going to use our file class, and we can use the exists method to check to see if the file we want to read in exists. Now in our case, we're going to use that absolute string with the relative path. So we want to start out with the 2 dots, backslash, 2 dots, backslash, a.txt. Now in this if statement, we're just checking to make sure that this file exists. So we're not really doing anything with it, and we shouldn't have a semicolon. I was just like, done, I'm done with that line of code. Wrong. So what we do need for our if statement is to go into our logic. So if the file does exist, we can begin a try block. And again, in our try block, we're going to try to read that file. File in. We want to set that to a new instance of a stream reader object. And the file name we want the stream reader to use is the same file name. Seems like we should have a variable to hold that file name, doesn't it? Here we are duplicating it. We should, and we will. Now, that allocates our file as input, so we can go into a read loop to read our file. To read our file, we're going to specify our in value variable, and we want our in value variable to be set equal to file in object, and we would like to read a line from that file in object. So in value is now going to be equal to whatever that first row of data is, our first saying. Now we're going to continue out this line after my green parenthesis. I'm going to continue out the while condition, saying that I want to repeat this while body as long as this in value is not null. So as long as I'm getting rows from the file, I want to keep reading it. When I read a record, I'm going to add it to our text box saying, text box. And we want to use the plus equal because we want to add every row to our text box. Everybody okay there? So we should be ready to try this now. We're saying I want to read in this file. As long as I can read in this file, I want to keep reading in this file. We do need to do a couple of other things though. Visual Studio is reminding us we have a try block here that doesn't have a matching catch. So I'll put in a catch. For this, we're concerned with any sort of error from our IO class. And if we get an error, we want to name the exception object that's returned to us EXC. And then we can use that to set up our message. We'll set up the text property of our label message equal to that exception object's message. Now, we're going to end our if statement. And if the file does not exist, we'll set up our label message. We could say whatever we want there, file not found or anything like that. Okay, so in our try block, we're going to try to read our file. If we run into any sort of error, we're going to put that error in our message. And if our file isn't available, we're going to specify that information. First time we run it, let's try it without copying the file into this project and see, make sure we get our file not available message. Wrong project, sorry about that. Let's use this new one, read from text. Make it be your startup project. Ah, better. Now, in our new one, we want to use our button and make sure we get this message, file not available. Cool, that's correct. So I'm going to go to File Explorer. So right click on your solution and choose Open Folder in File Explorer. Just easier sometimes. In our Write to Text folder, we have our saying.txt file. I want to copy it and paste it into our read from text project. So now we have it just in our actual project folder, the root of our project folder, not off in that bin debug because we specified that path with the parent specifications. Okay, let's see if it can find it now. Doesn't seem good. Let me make sure it's got some stuff in it. Looks like it's empty. I'm going to put some stuff in it. I just been in the Ozarks too long. Most of the sayings in my head are not things that are politically correct. Too Ozarkian, right? Old as the hills and twice. I want a few sayings in here because we want to make sure that each row is being handled correctly, right? So we don't just want like one. We could have saying one, saying two, saying three, but that would just be boring. Let's see, is there any others? Another saying goes here. All right, lots of sayings. I'm going to close this. Yes, save. Now, will my project show me some data? Ah, finally. So I've got some data, but it doesn't look like it's handling each row right, does it? It's kind of all squished together. Well, that's an interesting thing with our text box. Oh, and I need to update our label message. We would have been able to tell that something was going on there had we been updating it better. So let's take a look at those things. First of all, at the end of our while loop, I'm going to update our label message to say file loaded. See if we would have been getting that message. We would have known we were reading an empty file, right? Now, I don't want to put that down here after the end of the else clause, right? Because if I did that, then I would be wiping out a message that I might save from some sort of problem. So I only want to put this file loaded message, you know, within our actual logic of what's happening to load our file. All this other stuff is kind of extra, right? All of the periphery things that we have to have going on to read a file correctly. All right, and then the next thing we don't like is it's just all smushing everything together. So after I read in a row, I put it in a text box. Well, a text box needs to have a new line character to tell it to go to a new line. So let's see what that affects. Nothing. Text boxes are really mean. We have to do a carriage return and a new line to force a new line in a text box. And the carriage return is like an old typewriter thing where you went back to the beginning of the typewriter, and a new line is where the typewriter rolled. So they were separate things. So let's try this. Ha, better. Looks good. The early bird catches the worm, and here's our other sayings, and we say file loaded down here at the bottom. So we've successfully read our input file. Yay, yay. So is everybody's working okay? No? Oh, no, we're good. Oh, we're good. No. There's some. Yay. Thank you, little black squares. I need your feedback. Your sayings aren't loading. Let's get your sayings to load. Let's have you share. Okay, you should be able to share, Greg. Let's see what's going on. Well, that looks good. Let's check your file first. So let's look at your solution in File Explorer. So right click on your solution up at the very top so we can see them all, and open folder in File Explorer. And then let's take a look at, oh, okay, go up to your repos and we want that read from text project. And let's go to your view menu and check that box that says file name extensions. Okay, now we can tell that it is a .txt file, and it looks like it has something in it. Good. Okay. So that looks perfect. So let's go back to your project. We've got good data to read. And let's set a breakpoint there where we try to do the file in command, where we instantiate that. Yeah, anywhere around there is fine. Okay, so we're going to go on in. So it knows your file is there because it says it was able to, the file exists past, so that's a good sign. So let's keep going. And we're going to go into that while loop. And we see that first saying down there, so it read something. Here's the next one. That all looks good. Says file loaded. So everything looks good and we just don't have anything in that text box. So it's got it seems like it has to be something in your form. Let's close that and take a look at the form itself. And your text box. That all looks right. I don't see anything that should be causing any trouble. Anybody else see anything?
Not yet for now, but you get back to the code.
Sure.
That was saying dot test plus in value.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, equal, double equal.
Good job. You can stop that breakpoint too before you try it again. That should make a huge difference, huh? That one little thing. Isn't that crazy? Whoa.
Congrats.
Guys, you guys. Yay. Anybody else? Anybody else not working? Not a problem. We'll get it all fixed here. Okay, so we've got one project that reads a file and one project that writes a file. This is not what I want. I have too many windows. Here's the one I want. So a couple of things that we can do different. This example that they have in the textbook we'll look at, and we'll try to use this as we go. We're actually going to change our project to be this way. So they're introducing the using clause, and we've actually kind of used that, right? We have all these using statements. So the using statements up at the top basically are compiler directives, right? To say, I want to use this library. This class library should be included in my compile. And it means that I'm going to be using this class library throughout this CS file, this code. The using clause in this example kind of means the same thing. It's saying, I'm going to be using this file for a certain amount of time, and then I'm going to be done with it. It's a resource, so I can use the using clause to specify a resource. So let's look at our project. Right now, we've done everything great. We open our file. When we allocate our stream reader, we read it and process it. We're missing the close. So we could leave this file in a incomplete way. We could cause trouble with another application because we're showing pointers that this text file is still open. So if another program came along and wanted to open this file with some sort of exclusive update open, it might not be allowed to because we have it open to read. So we need to add our close. The way we have this project set up, we could close the file at the end of our button code, or we could add the .closing event to our project so that we close the file in the event of the form closing. Or we could use a using clause. So let's try a using clause. The reason that that'll take care of the close for us is when we use a using, we're specifying that this resource should be allocated to us and be available to us just through the duration of the using clause. So a couple of things we're going to have to do. We're going to comment out our class level stream reader, because kind of says that we're going to use one throughout our class. And we could do that, but I don't want to emphasize that right now. So it is possible. But now we get an error when we try to allocate our stream reader because we haven't declared that object already. But we're going to declare that object in a using clause. We're going to say that all of the code that follows this line of code is using this file in object. Now we've got a few errors, right? First of all, it doesn't like our semicolon anymore. That's because the using statement has a body, just like the try statement has a body and the if statement has a body. So that means it needs to have curly braces. So I'm going to eliminate the semicolon and add opening and closing curly braces. Not happening. Guess I need to put parentheses here. Better. Okay, so our using clause is kind of like a lot of our other C# body type statements where the resource that we're using needs to be specified within parentheses. So I'm telling C# for this code, the duration of this code, I will be using this stream reader resource. When this code is over, I will be done using this stream reader resource, so you may release all of the resource associated with that. So that means the using statement, our file stream reader object will be instantiated, will be allocated to this file. It will exist for the duration of our using clause, and then when our using clause is done, the resources will be released. So our file will be closed. That should be all we need to change. So by specifying the using clause, we're giving control of that file open and close to the operating system itself and saying we're just using this resource. So let's see if everything still works. And we're all set, good to go. Okay, so this is optional. So it'll take care of that file close for us. So we totally do not need that using clause. We could just take it out with its beginning and ending curly braces and everything would be good. All right, so we can use the using clause for a lot of different things. We could have it set up, using some sort of class that we've created, and then that instantiated object would be automatically released or put in the trash whenever we're done. And last time I was showing you the pictures of the VHS tape and the DVD to try to really enforce the concepts there of random access versus sequential access. We can actually use the binary reader and binary writer classes to go seek a specific location within a file and read the exact piece of data out of the file or write an exact piece of data into the file. So the binary reader and binary writer classes let us be very, very specific in accessing a file. But that means we have to know a lot about the formatting of that file. So when we're using the binary reader and binary writer, if we want to read a string, we have to actually specify read string. If we want to read a decimal from the file, we have to specify read decimal. So the binary reader and binary writer classes are very specific. They let us have dynamic, direct access to data within a file, but it's very clunky, I guess, should I say. It's very, very kind of an obsolete way of doing things, but it does give us absolute control. So the people that wrote database management systems do that kind of binary input and output to take care of the database's that control our data. So that's some interesting stuff. There's some examples in there that you can go through. Now we need to add in information about how to use a file when we're using the Windows File Open and File Save As dialogues, right? Because those are the things that we see people use all the time. So let's try it. We're going to create a whole new application here. Woohoo! Let's do it. I'm going to close this one. Say, oh. So I'm going to close this whole solution. So I'm going to start out with a brand new one. This last one I named chapter 13, and then the others I had named like menu. Let's name this one menu also, so it'll sort in your list. And this will be menu file dialogs. So the file dialogs, the Windows file dialogs, are the common controls that present the file open screen, the file save as screens to users. So we're super used to seeing those. So are our users, and it makes our applications be oh so much better if we can add those kind of common controls. So in our little application where we read in and wrote out our sayings, we used a text file that was hard-coded. That's what I would say. That was hard-coded, right? It was actually coded in our code what the file name is. We don't like to do that, right? Wouldn't you hate it if some application that you used did that and didn't give you the ability to change your file names? Well, whenever we use the dialogs, the file open, file save as dialogs, then we can pretty easily give that ability to our users. So let's do something with our form here. I think I want to set like a background image, right? We never do that. I'm going to import a picture. Let's see what I've got. I've got the fancy bookshelves. I don't know where that fancy flower went that we were looking at yesterday or last time. I have too many pictures folders. I'll just pick one. Can't use those Java ones, right? I use the bookshelf. What a decision. Oh my God. Phew, there's a background. No, I don't like that. I'm going to change that so that it's not tiled, huh? That looks pretty good. Can see the logo. That's good because it's not mine. All right, so I've got some edges here. I'll do messing around. And I want a menu. So I wanted that to kind of show up. That's why I wanted to do a background image. So remember when we added our menu, we went to the containers type controls, but we can find that under all Windows controls too. And we want a menu strip. by default, places our menu strip up at the top. And we want to start with our file menu. And remember, we put an ampersand before the key that is like our hotkey. They call that the access key. And then under our file menu, now we're going to add open. If I press Alt to activate those access keys in file, I see that for open, the hotkey or access key is the O. Our application is not really going to allow for a new file, because we'll just, if they save it as a new file, then that's how we would create a new file. I'll Alt F, and save is S, save as is the A. Now after save as, I think I right click there. I want to insert a line, a separator. It went above, so I'll move it. Come on, you silly thing. Move. Won't move for me. Let me put a new one down here, and then it should move. My last one is going to be exit. And we decided that the X is what's the hotkey. Now, hopefully I can move my separator line. I'll just delete it and add a new one since it's being such a jerk. Insert separator. All right, now our file menu should be done, and we want that separator, right, because we have all our file commands before the separator and our exit command after the separator. Now we know that we should always have help and about. How can we have the A be the hotkey for help about and file save as? Well, because they're on different menus. So they're not at the same level. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and name each of these. So our file menu, oh, it's already named so well. Open, I love it. Okay, so our menu's already named pretty good. Let's put in code for our file exit. I'm going to double click on that. What we do there is exit. I can use IntelliSense. I'll put a comment. 1, 2, 3. Edit the application from the exit menu bar. If I put a comment here, and C8 form, good, so we have everything all documented. Now let's go back to our form and see what else we have. We can do our help, about. Let's create a little form for that on our project this time, right? Not on our solution, but on our project. We want to add that form. Add Windows form, and we'll name this form. We'll make it a little form. I'm going to go ahead and put the same awful background. And then there are some other things that we could change here. Because we want this to just sort of be the help about, some people have been experimenting with things, which is great. We could actually change this control box to false, and that'll eliminate all of the title bar stuff. So they won't be able to close or anything. Let's do that. And then we'll put a button on here. That just says okay. Name it button. Okay. And I'm going to double click our OK button and say this dot close to close this form when somebody clicks OK. So very, very minimal help about form. I'm going to go back to our main form and let's run it. So we should have a functioning file menu, at least for the exit. Let's check our help. About. Got to display that about form, don't we? Not doing that yet. So let's try the exit. Good. So help about. Double click about. And we want to create an instance of our form. And we want to show it. And remember, we're going to show it as a dialog so that this application just waits for it to be done. Good. There's our about form. Click OK, and it should close. So we just want a skeleton here. All right, so now it's our file menu that we're to, and that's where we want it to be. I'm going to close these form about tabs. And on my file menu, I have open and then my save and save as. Whenever somebody clicks on open, we'd like to show that file open dialog box. So let's see what we can find with our common dialogs. Some of them are sorted one way or, named in different ways. So we have the open file dialog, and that's the first one we want to use. So find that control, open file dialog, and let's drag it onto our form. Now we know that just drops it onto our component area here, our component tray, and allows us to access the properties of that common control. Now, when we look at the common control properties, there's a lot of things we can see. The name of our common dialog, that's fine. Now, this file name, this is the file name that gets clicked on by the user. So we could start with that empty, or we could start with it like a suggested file name. What was our last one saying? .txt. We could set up a filter to where we only show people files of a certain type. They have an example down here. For example, if we only wanted to show C# files, we would use the star.cs as our filter. If we wanted to show all files, we would use star.star. Let's create a filter like that for ours. So within our string, the first thing we want is to allow text files. So we'll say, hey, to see text files. Now I'm going to use the pipe character, which is shift and above, enter. So for text files, my filter, my wildcard would be star.txt. Then another pipe character. If I want to show all files, my filter would be star.star. And that should complete that filter. And we'll look at that when we're looking at our file open. Now, just like the file name, our initial directory would show the initial location that we want the user to be in for this open. So we should be able to do ... /... Let's try that, see if it gets mad. We may open our project folder instead of our bin debug folder. All right, other things we can do, we could allow a checkbox that specifies only read-only items, showing help. A title, let's change our title. Let's make this be open file for sayings, or whatever we want it to say. All right, so we've got our open file dialog now, some properties set. We could set those properties in the code too, right? We're just setting them here in our design mode. Now I want to add some code to display this file dialog box when somebody clicks open. So I'm going to use the file menu and double click open. Now when they click open, we want to show that open file dialog. So we can show it as a dialog. So let's just do that. Now we know that's not going to be enough, but that's enough for us to try. So let's try it. Now if I do file open, I should see the open file dialog. Now I see my saying.txt worked. And if I look over here, I do have this option for text files, like a weird double quote there. So let's see if that's working. Do I have any text files in any folders? Probably. There's some. So it's not showing us any files other than our .txt. If I change our filter to all files, I got nothing. So got that weird double quote. Got to fix that. What else? It didn't seem to open in our project folder. It opened in documents. And that's probably the default location. So let's see if we can get some of those items updated. First of all, I'm going to stop running the application and go back to the form design so that I can look at properties for the open file dialog. And I'm thinking that the example I was looking at showed double quotes, and maybe we don't need them. So let's try getting rid of that, and we'll try getting rid of the double quotes in our initial directory. File open. I'm looking at saying.txt. Going to my 120 folder. I do have .text. That looks like it's working. Got rid of that weird double quote. All files. Oh yeah, that's better. Now I'm seeing all files. So our filter is good, but for whatever reason, it's not taking us into a different folder. It wants us to go into that documents folder. Let's close this. And we could fight with that a little while, but I'm just gonna delete it out and let that be something that we could deal with on another day. So that all looks good. Now, I want to add a little bit more to the code, because how do we figure out what file name they clicked on? Well, let's go in and add some more. So the first thing we need is we need a variable to hold that dialog result. We'll call it result. Did they click OK? You know, what did they do? And then we can say if result that we set equal to whatever they choose. And we wanted to say if that equals OK, get rid of that semicolon. So if they click OK, I have to put that first part in parentheses because that equal sign was confusing the compiler. It was like, do you want me to do some sort of comparison here? And no, I don't. I want you to run the open file dialog, place the result into the result variable, and then check the result variable to see if they clicked OK. If they did, then we can do a message box. We'll say the file name chosen equals open file dialog dot file name. Now, if they don't click OK, then we don't really do anything, right? We know that there is not any sort of file chosen. Let's try it. File, open. I'm going to go find a file. My 120 folder, I'm going to change it to all files. I'm going to choose one and make sure that my message box shows me the right file name. Ah, that looks good. How's yours? Is it okay? Everybody working okay? Excuse me. Okay, so I haven't done anything with our file. Remember, we could take this file name now, this open dialog file name, and use it for the file name in a stream reader or stream writer or whatever we wanted to do, because that's all we needed in that object was the file name. So notice how these pieces are fitting together. They're not separate. The dialog, the common control, lets the user pick the file name in a way that they're used to. We take that file name that they pick and we open that file to read the input or open that file to write data to it. So each of these pieces are important for our user to be able to select that file and us to be able to process it. So whenever they're using this file dialog, they're just getting the file name. We are not doing anything to that file, just getting that file name. Now, if we were going to add a toolbar and we were going to have a file open on our toolbar, we would probably want to make this a separate method. So let's think about that. What if we did and then we're going to take our code from our tool strip menu and move it to this new method. And now in our tools, in our menu, let's call dialog box open. I'm going to move my comments. And create new ones for up here. Call the dialog box open method to file. Okay, so make sure you're clear on what we did there. First of all, whenever somebody clicks open on our menu, we're going to execute this event procedure, the click event for the menu. When we execute this click event, we're going to call our dialog box open method. Our dialog box open method is going to display the system dialog, that common control, and that display what file name they pick. So now it'd be super easy for us to add a tool strip so that when somebody clicks that icon, we can just, again, run this same code. We'll do that, but let's do our save first. Now, whenever we do a save, we're assuming that they haven't saved a file yet, right? Or they have already saved a file because we know its name. If they haven't, we're going to say, oh, you need to save this as a certain name. So in our application, we need a class variable to know what that save as name is. So we're going to start out with this null. We don't know what the file name is that they would like to save as. And you'll see how we're going to use this here in a minute. Okay, so let's go add our save dialog to our form. We found the open file dialog. Scroll down to the S's and you should see the save file dialog. Add that to our form. And again, just like our open file dialog, we can look at the different properties and change the way this displays for our user. We have a default extension. If we want to make it .txt, we have a default file name. We do have the same filter property, initial directory. Let's see, title, let's set that. Save sayings file. So in our code, we need to display this. Let's choose File and double click on Save. In the same way as we decided we should set up a method to call to do this, we should do that same thing. Dialog box save. We're going to set up a dialog result variable. We're going to save file dialog1 show dialog. If our result is equal to okay, we're going to just use a message box again. File name chosen equals, and this time we want the save file dialog1.file name. Now, because we set up that variable to keep track of the file name, we need to update it at this point also. So we called it file what do we call it? Save as file name. Better. Okay. Now I haven't commented these yet because we're going to be changing things up in just a second, so you can think about how all this works. But I want to go ahead and run this and see if we're on track. If I click File, Save, I should see now the Save dialog box. But notice this is really Save As, because when we click Save, like think about being in Word, if you just click Save, or in Visual Studio, if you just click Save, it just saves the file you've already saved as a certain name, right? So whenever you click Save, we really don't need to have a dialog box display. It's the Save As that needs it. So let's fix all this. But it looks good so far, working, huh? I'm gonna choose a file name, make sure my message box, oh, look at that. No, I don't want to, I wanna keep that. So everything seems to be working. But I wanna change that functionality. So let's think about it. In our form, it's if they click Save As that we wanna show that Save As dialog box, right? So let's update its code. Double click your Save As button. And this code that we have right here, dialog box save, let's make that be Save As. And that's the method that we're gonna run. Somebody select Save As, because that means they want to give it a different name, right? So we're going to choose all of that stuff. Now, what if they just want to save the file that they've already picked? Well, first, we better make sure that that file exists. So I'm going to add a new method. So if our save as file name that we have set up is nothing, then we're going to display the dialog box save as. Otherwise, we'll do a message box. Let me finish that. So when somebody clicks save, we're going to make sure that they already have a file name selected. If they don't, we're going to show the save as dialog box. You need to pick a file name for us to save. If they do, we're going to say, oh, okay, and simulate that we have saved that new file. So that means when somebody clicks save on the tool strip menu, we want to run this new check save file method. So think about that logically. Let's add in our comments now. Save menu is the file already named. And then check to see if file name has been selected for a save. And then in our save as, we're going to show the dialog box to allow file name selection. And our save as tool strip runs just to save it. Wow, so we get a little complicated there, don't we? Because again, we have to control the users. If they click save and they haven't already given us a file name, then we need to do save as. But if they click save and they've already given us one, we can just save it. Whew, let's run this thing. Okay, file. If I click save as, choose a file name. Sure. Now, I didn't actually do anything to hurt that file, so it's okay. But it does say, here's your file name that you chose. Okay. So now when I click save, it should know we already have a file name and we should just get our message box has been saved. Good. If we close and we run again and we choose save, this time, since we haven't already saved our file, we should get the save as. Okay, so this is how we would normally make things work for the save as. This emulates the same kind of way that Windows works. Questions? Everybody working okay? Yay, do some stuff. Good, if that is all working. So we want to add into our application here a toolbar, right? We've created everything so that we can do that. So let's add that last thing. Notice, again, even our little sample app gets to be a little complicated. I'm going to go back to our form. And now I want to close this thing, stop it. I want to add a toolbar. So we remember that was a tool strip. So down here's my tool strip. Let's add a tool strip control to our form. It puts it right under the menu and it creates that tool strip control. Now our tool strip isn't going to have a lot of things. First, I do want an open. So I'm going to choose to add a button. Now, my button here, tool strip button 1, it's not named very well. So, and I really like the way the other ones are named, right, where it starts at the beginning. So how about if we make it be open tool strip button? And then if you remember for our toolbar buttons, we want to use an image. And we had copied that image library from Microsoft. See if I can find it. I'm going to import into my project resource file. I think, yep, image library. And I want to find the open. So there's a few. Open file dialog. I'm going to check open file because that's really what we're doing here. Oh, that looks good. I'll use that one. Now some other things, my tool strip. I'm going to make the text be open file. Make the tooltip be open file. Changed it. Good. Now on this open, I should just be able to double click on it. And I'm going to find the method that we created for our open. Dialog box open. And that's it. So we've got that tool strip done now because we set everything up so that it would be easy to do, created our methods. Let's try it. Ah, there's our file open. Perfect. Everybody good? Does it work? Some working? So if we go back to our form then, we should be able to add the save. So let's do another button. And I'm going to make this one be save tool strip. And then find that image. Didn't do that right. Take me to it. Save, save, save. So again, we have a lot of them. We have save, save all, save as, save, 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 save. Let's do save. Yeah, it looks okay. Now for our save, again, I'm going to double click. And we want this one to open or to run that method that decides if they've already saved or not. Check save file. So that should be implemented. Try it. We get our save as, got our right heading. We know it's ours. Okay, and then save as. One more button. I'm going to call this one save as. The image. Save as. Now my text I need to fix. I didn't do that for my last one. And it'll fix my tooltip text. If I click in it. All right, so for our save as, double click it. And this one should run what? Dialog box save as. Perfect. So all of our toolbar items should now be implemented. Let's run it. And in our save as, we can see that everything's working. Icons look a little different. I think I chose a different style. All right, so a menu and working toolbar, and we could integrate that with our other application so that we could read and write the files. Look at our code here. Put one more comment. And we're going to save the file. Great. Time to go. We're in good shape. Any questions? Everybody working okay? It's good, 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 good. So some pretty full featured applications here. Next week, we'll integrate a menu and toolbar into our audio CD applications, which will be the last pieces that you needed for the final. So we should be in good shape for that last solid week of classes to just be working on the final. The assignment that's due tonight, don't forget it's out there, is only reproducing this 13-5 example that's in that Doyle PDF. So it's just to assure that you've gone through that project and got that code done is all that one is for. So it will go into TFS. So just kind of further practice at processing files and really thinking about how that information is stored and how you're reading it and accessing it. One of our last ones. All right, I'm going to try to do the live share. So if you are not interested in trying that, I will see you next week. Have a great weekend. If you're interested in trying it for a sec, hang on. Going to try our project from today. Okay, so to try this, there is an add-on that needs to be installed. Let me find it. I'll just bring up a new one so I can know. Try to find the best place. Nope. This one. So visualstudio.microsoft.com. And then if you scroll down, I think if you click this start collaborating, oh, it'll take us to that other one that I said, nope, not that one. We want, okay, they say to install a supported workload. Let me see what I've got. Okay, so when you do tools, get tools and features, the workloads is the first thing, the first tab to have available. So they're saying any of these workloads that support this, but let's look at my individual components. It's way down at the very bottom. So under individual components, if you go all the way down, do you guys see the slide share? Will it let you install it? Okay, if it lets you install it, and I'm going to try to open it while you guys are doing that. Start a session. And then this should be the session link. Yes, you do have to have 2019. So if you go, here's how you can get it. That's where I wondered what we needed to do to start. Let's get it. Get my mouse over here. So you can get it for free. And the easiest way to find the site is to search for Microsoft Dev Tools. And if you add the for teaching or for students, it'll be more specific. If you go to the Microsoft Dev Tools site, we want to make sure we find this one that says Azure Dev Tools for Teaching. And I'm sorry I don't send out the URL. Microsoft just changes them so quickly. But this Dev Tools for Teaching, you're going to sign in using your OTC account. And mine doesn't work right. So I'm going to sign out. Or sign in with my account that does work. Okay. Did you get here? Does it let you get here? If it lets you get here, click on software. And you should be able to find 2019. So for us, you want to get Visual Studio Enterprise 2019. When you click on it, if you haven't used the site before, when you click on it, you have the option to download it. If you've already got it installed, you can just view your key, your product key, to activate. Now, I had so much trouble regaining access to this site that I did make sure I saved all of my product keys off someplace else so that I could get to them in case this site got all nasty again, because it's been totally redone. Now on this site, you could get Windows 10, SQL Server, any of the software that's out here. You're authorized to get. Okay, so this link, I think, is what you would enter. So if you get Live Share installed on Visual Studio 2019, you should see this Live Share option. And you are just going to come up and join a session and then use this string that I sent is the session to join. We got Adam to work in the 120 class. So if I bring up Adam and I'm coding Python, the majority of the students who got it set up, not everybody did, but the majority can just actually join that virtual coding session, and they can type and change code and stuff too all together. And I'm not sure how beneficial that is, but I think it's pretty cool. So I want to get it to work here. We should be able to with Visual Studio 2019. It's just taken me a month to get my account straightened out to where I could actually get it. Microsoft said my OTC account is not acceptable to them. They won't use it. I don't know why. Gmail is better. Any luck? Any luck? What you doing? Where you at? Okay, we will try it again next week. See if you can get stuff downloaded. That's what I wanted to do, is just kind of give us a start to see what all needed to go on, because I just don't think that everybody's quite ready for it this semester. But if you'll try it and see what it does to you, that'd be so awesome. We'll get it to work. Get off of here so you'll have all your bandwidth to use for that download. And have a great weekend. Yell if you get something and you want to try it. You too, Sebastian, are you there? I'm not sure if he's there. I'm going to go ahead and end this thing then. See you guys next week. Thanks.